Hello, friends. Jim here. Another article appeared on the online publication EOS. Climate change threatens the future of wild rice. As a pressure plant struggles to thrive in the U.S. upper Midwest, researchers are taking steps to understand the reasons for its decline. And here we have a nice photo. Canoes rest on the banks of a rice lake in the Fond du Lac Indian Reservation in Minnesota. And the photo was taken by Madeline Nyblade, who, as we'll find out in a few moments, is one basically doing the research. Wild rice, also known as manumin in the Ojibwe, the language of the Ojibwe people, is a wildgrass species that grows in lakes and rivers in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. Populations of this culturally significant plant have dropped by about 6% to 7% per year on off-reservation rice waters since the 1990s. Research presented at the 2023 AGU annual meeting in San Francisco showed that the plant is suffering from the combined effects of climate change and changes to the landscapes that surround rice lakes. These findings could indicate ways to steward the plant in the face of these threats. We're calling for caretaking for this being as it faces these stressors, said Madeline Nyblade, who completed the research as part of her doctoral studies in Earth Environmental Sciences at the University of Minnesota. Nyblade's research is part of I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce all of this, but apparently it translates as first we must consider Manumin, a research collaboration between the Mill Locks, Thousand Lakes, band of Ojibwe, the St. Croix Chippewa Indians of Wisconsin, the Fond du Lac band of the Lake Superior Chippewa, the Lac du Flambeau band of Lake Superior Chippewa, intertribal organizations, and University of Minnesota scientists. So they're basically co-developing wild rice research in accordance with tribal priorities. Wild rice is both an important food and an important ceremonial plant for the Ojibwe and Dakota peoples. Wild rice is in jeopardy. So Nyblade and her colleagues use data on wild rice abundance within 49 lakes in the upper Midwest collected over 3 decades by tribal partners on the project, along with climate and land use data. The team found multiple stressors contributing to wild rice decline, but climate change was a primary concern. And here's a little diagram showing kind of this cycle of wild rice. Wild rice is an annual plant, meaning it grows from a seed each year. In early summer, it's in the floating leaf stage, when its thin root systems make it vulnerable to water level fluctuations, presumably referring to these two, stages in this diagram here. So, as stated, it grows from a seed each year rather than lying dormant during the winter, such as like a perennial. In early summer, its long leaves lie flat along the water surface. So it is at this stage, and I guess that's what's trying to be shown here, the plant is sensitive to changes in water level because deeper waters can uproot its thin root system. So in other words, if this water doesn't stay shallow enough, it could literally float it away because it will just pull the root doesn't have a very strong hold in the substrate, so it can probably just detach, and then it floats away. Climate change has brought more early summer precipitation to the upper Midwest, making it harder for the wild rice to survive this critical phase. Presumably, more precipitation raises the water level. Winters in the Midwest are warming too. Average lake ice has thinned in recent decades, and lakes are covered with ice for a shorter duration. Joe Gravine, a member of the Research Collaboration Wildlife Program Manager for Lac du Flambeau, a band of the Lake Superior Chippewa Indians, remembers lake ice 4 or 5 feet, 1 to 1.5 meters thick in his youth. He says, now you're lucky if you get 0.6 meters, about 2 feet. Nightblade's research found that colder winters and longer ice duration relate positively to strong wild rice abundance in the following summer. That may be because colder winters hamper the growth of pickerel weed and water lilies, freeing up space for wild rice. The fifth National Climate Assessment, released in November, projects that warmer winters, shorter ice duration, thinner ice, extreme precipitation events will become the norm in the Midwest. So basically, result of the partnership with the Dakota Nation, the team's begun to understand how land use changes over the past 200 years may have affected wild rice. A conversion of prairies and forests to farmlands, draining of wetlands, and urban development have directly or indirectly contributed to the decline of Manoomin. And that statement is from Basile Panek, is an indigenous consultant with the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior, Ojibwe. Previous research has indicated that the mining industry in Minnesota also threatens wild rice through sulfate pollution. Tribes in northern Minnesota have recently expressed concern that a proposed nickel mine could threaten wild rice in nearby lakes. So how we go about stewarding the Manoomin? The best way to care for wild rice in the face of so many threats? Well, we've been stewarding Manoomin wild rice since time immemorial. As part of its stewardship efforts, the Lac du Flambeau tribe has been involved in reseeding efforts and has started to remove competing plants from some rice lakes. The traditional method of harvesting wild rice by hand also promotes its growth by allowing some of the plant's seeds to fall to the lake bed. More research is still needed to fully understand what's causing drastic declines in wild rice abundance. So they need more data and, for example, what's the effect of cultural burning on the wild rice? Traditional ecological knowledge can tell us that low-intensity fires near Manoomin lakes contribute to the betterment of wild rice. So, we've heard me discuss how climate change, warming planet, right, is impacting agriculture. Plants that are purposely harvested, cultivated, and that we have mass industries for. And I've also discussed with you how the nutritional yield is declining, along with the overall yield is declining. Well, this is a wild plant, but we're seeing again how climate change is impacting even wild plants. So, a warming planet, more CO2 in the air does not translate to higher crop yields. It is not plant food, as some are want to say. Because as I showed in a recent video, when it gets really warm, the stomata of the plants don't know what to do. Oh, sure, stay open. Try and draw in more CO2. Oh, but if you're open, you're going to lose more water and then you're going to wilt and die. So after some point, the stomata just close. There could be lots of CO2 in the air, but it doesn't risk opening up because it will lose excess water. More water than can be drawn up. And the warming air is pulling the moisture out of the roots, out of the soil, so there's less for the roots to draw up. The reason why they can't stay open. They can't, if they're going to lose the water and there's not enough water to replace, overall, the plant will wilt. Well, now we're seeing a whole bunch of different factors. Here it seems to be related to, ice levels, the severity of the winter, how cold. Well, the winter's getting milder. Are there large precipitation events, that introduces a large amount of water that will basically cause the flimsy roots to detach, thereby killing off the plant. It's all related. But we're losing the big agricultural plants. Their yields are decreasing. And it looks like we're losing, here's an example of losing wild plant. That is important. It's an important food. So there you have it. More trouble to try and grow food. I haven't even mentioned overpopulation, but I've discussed that with you in other videos and in certain podcasts. Thank you for your time.